Welcome, this is Dr. Traci K. I love you in this place. Thanks for coming to share your practice and listen to another spiritual vibe message today. Now, I wanted to talk about intimacy in a way where we're going to talk about also friendship and the love of the holy, and how our connection is, and what we need to remember being the sinners that we are on the spiritual vibe message. And I'm going to combine a couple things because I know that we have upcoming Valentine's Day, and we also have a Galentine's Day, which is February 13th for each year, which is for celebrating women and their friendship and their bond and that power upon that, but also the connection and finding our love. So, like, a lot of you need to understand this also, the intimacy part of celebrating love, basically. And I want to put that in a spiritual aspect. So, how I want to talk about today how to be a Galentine. What is, a Galentine? And I want to use a biblical thing with this towards a modern time. And what I want to explain to you is Galentine it's not about being single. It's about being empowered as a woman, being independent. It can be unisex even if you want it to be. So, with that being said, a lot of the female energy sense has always been not having a voice. We were used as property, and today we're still struggling with a lot of that, but it's similar to the sense of how we are as sinners, and having that connection and trying to find that connection and understanding the intimacy of how the true love is when it comes to being holy. And, God, in a sense, or your higher power, or your goddess, lives inside you. You are created from that. And we're always trying to understand how to love, or what is love, and what's connection to love. There's so many different aspects of love. And so when I speak of this, when it comes to moving forward in your future, finding a way to level up, to manifest what you want in your life and your dream, so that you're connect, or you can understand what true love is, or what love is in anything in your life, whether it's health, love, or health, relationships, or career. It's finding that joy in a sense of loving to do something in a sense. And it's the same way with anything in your life, a friendship or relationships or family. And so when we deal with the negativity in the world and the sin in the world, we're always trying to battle with that in order to understand love. Maybe some of you guys have been in abusive relationships, or maybe you grew up in a negative household where you were always put down and so forth. And, there's a lot of meanness, negativity. And so when it comes to, God, or the higher power, goddess, or whatever you can, it's, it's a pure source of holiness, love. It's, a lot. And so, what that represents is that it represents pure source, holiness, unconditional love, the truest form, to the point where, if some of us as sinners, if we would look at it face to face, we should surely die. And so when it comes to anything in the world, when it comes to religion or politics, everybody's like, you want to either turn away from it walk around it, ignore it, or about, put your head away from it. Nobody wants to talk about religion or politics. And that's a lie. Everybody does in some way, or if it's in a circle where you're similar with. And nobody wants to talk about the Bible. Nobody wants to talk about the goddess. Nobody wants to talk about spirituality because they just want to ignore it. Oh, no. It's like the jokes about the Jehovah's Witness when they come knock on the door kind of thing. So what I talk about is how to be a Galentine, because you're always trying to avoid this love, so to speak. And yet, why do we? It's uncomfortable. Right? It's too bright. It's uncomfortable because we're sinners and we live in this dark time of darkness. But we're born and we are a child of the Most High, the pure source, which is unconditional, true, pure love. Right? And so when I talk about the things that we deal in our life, we get to the point where it's uncomfortable, or we don't want to talk about it, we don't want to face it, and we're mean about it, and to the point where we're mean to those, even our loved ones that come from us, when we come from that pure source, and we're mean to them, or we're hateful to them, and it's a sense of, because that is true, because we are not in connection with that true source, and we're avoiding that love connection. It's the same thing with friendship. Sometimes you deal with women in friendship where it's not pure, it's not true, and they are actually not true. And so it's hard. It is. So I want to talk about, and it's the same thing with your relationship, or trying to find that someone that is your soulmate, so to speak. Now, I want to tell this story because I think it's a great story, because it combines all of it in one, to understand how I'm speaking of this. I want to use a Galentine from the biblical times and bring it into this today, because most of the time you don't hear about women from the biblical times, or the women of the power, because we were hidden. It's still that way. We're still trying to voice. But I want to talk about the story of Abigail. Abigail is an awesome. She's a amazing woman in the story, and it's not a prostitute or anything. Which you hear a lot about that back then, but no, she's different. Abigail is the story that echoes in the hearts of all women in this, as a Galentine, as an example of true courage, even in the face of danger. And it comes from a pure soul of love. And I want to talk about, because it's resourced in Samuel 25. It's a beautiful story. And it emerges, she is a heroine of my time, in the sense of today. And she was, let alone beautiful, dark hair like me, hello. Even though I was blonde, but she was just wavy dark hair. She was wealthy. She was intelligent and humble in a sense, and she was also married to a jerk. Actually, he was a mean guy, and maybe some of this, but the whole thing about this is that, when we're dealing with things in our life that are mean or so forth, she was married to the most wealthy guy. He lived in Carmel, and his name was Nabal, and he was mean, he was wealthy, and a scoundrel. He had thousands of sheep, thousands of shepherds, he was wealthy. Now, if you know the story of David, everybody knows the story of David, what you've learned growing up. Everybody knows this, the young shepherd, David, and humbly, then we know the heroine David, then we know the King David, but we don't know the fugitive David. Nobody's talking about the fugitive David. This is what we deal with. David, when he was casted out because, Saul was getting word that he was going to be the king of Israel in the future, and was anointed, that an actual prophet had come and anointed David as the next king of Israel. And, as a king, you don't want somebody outside. You want your son to be the king. So he cast him out. He was a fugitive, and he had to live amongst the fugitive, and he ended up taking all the fugitives with him, and he had about 600 men and their wives and their children and all their stuff. So he was a fugitive. So they went out and he became, and this is when David was really angry at God and hated God, and he hated. So this is the future of David. Now, David, but he was anointed. So inside, he was still blessed by God, the Lord, and yet he was still taking things in his own hand. Now, he still had that blessing in a sense where he was actually protecting this guy, this scoundrel, Nabal, this wealthy man, to where anytime he would come into the city, none of his sheep were stolen, none of his wealth was stolen, nothing, none of the women were stolen, and raped or whatever type thing. So he protected them. This is including that. Now, he sent word to this guy, this wealthy guy, Nabal, and that, hey, we're protecting you. I mean, he was kind of like the mafia back then, but in a good way, in a sense. But he's like, I'm protecting you no matter what you do. I'm protecting your land, your sheep, your women, your whole, property and stuff. Nothing's been touched, nothing was stolen, your women have been touched. He's like, he gets the word, he's like, and as a jerk as he was, because his name, Nabal, actually means fool. So he said, I don't care. I never asked for his protection. I didn't want it. Who cares? I don't care, this guy's whatever. Tell him just, off. And so the word come back, and he said it word to word to David about what he said, and David became enraged. So he went to seek vengeance on Nabal's foolishness response. So he gathered all his men, and David, he had the sword of Goliath, which was anointed by the high power, and he takes his men, 600 men, his little army, small army, and goes and rides off. And as he's riding, he's getting really angry, and he's really stirring up and getting this going, being a gladiator. And so a woman from the servants of the master of Nabal, which is his wife is Abigail, runs to her and whispers in her ear and says, "Oh my gosh, she's such a fool. You've got to do something about your husband." And he's gonna there's gonna be bloodshed. It's gonna be this, not this, and you got to do something. He's a jerk. Oh my gosh, and no one can talk to him. No one. And she's like, So she thinks about this as an intelligent, beautiful Galentine woman. She's like, and the women of all her gather up, and they just develop a plan as a bondage, and they develop a plan, and they said, okay, we need to not tell him anything, okay, ladies? And we say, okay, this is it. We're going to set up something. There's a plan. What's the plan? They all get together, drink some wine, whatever, eat some fruit, whatever, and they get together, and they're just like, okay, we're going to develop this plan. It's a strategy. And so what they decide to do is Abigail gathers together, it gets a whole thing of donkeys. And that's like a truckload today, okay? And she gathers and puts all this, and her girls and everything, and they get together and they gather the food, they get the wine, they get the bread, and they put it all up on, the truckload of donkeys here, and they head out, and they load them up, and they head out to meet this future king of Israel, which is David. And when Abigail saw David, and without a word, because she saw him, she comes front and falls down, puts her face to the ground before him, bowing herself to the ground, falling at his feet. And Abigail delivered the most humble, heartfelt plea to David to spare them and her household and her property. And she says, "You are the anointed. You live for the Lord. Your Lord is life. He has put you into this. Think about the time." And she reminds him of his 15-year-old David, how God rescued him and God used him. And she's by the sword of life, you are nothing but a sense, because your future, my Lord, my future, the king, in the sense where, not by a sword, but of a sling, but by just literally of a sling. And he is reminded of his 15-year-old and what happened, and reminded of what pure God gave him in a sense. And she admits about the heart of the man, her husband, of a fool. He is a fool, my Lord. You are the God, the justice. God is my Lord. Justice is on you. You're anointed, and she's admitted that her husband has bad character, she reminds David that his life was in the hands of God, and his enemy would be destroyed because of God's justice, and his own house would endure. She only asked in return, when God has fulfilled everything that he had promised David, that David remember her. And Abigail's humble response, she's so intelligent. She makes us, go to that area in the scripture. So amazing how she words everything. And it's so smart. And it's like, once he comes and sees this beautiful woman, absolutely gorgeous woman, with all this load of donkey, truckloads of food and wine and everything. And immediately his heart melts. It's like all that anger, all that stuff that he's a rage, it's like his heart just melts. And so he says, oh my goodness, thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me of that. Oh my goodness, I almost made a biggest mistake and put this worst bloodshed, and it would have been the worst thing I'd ever done. And she's like, reminds him of God, anointing him that he's going to be next king. And she's like, oh, really? Oh yeah. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for reminding me. Thank you so much. You are an amazing woman. I hear your message. I'm listening. Bless you. God is going to bless you, Abigail. And her amazing, intelligent response turns David's heart pure. And he saw that error, and he himself was recently spared by the life of King of Saul, remember, who sought to kill David. Yet David had been quick to exterminate this household of men who merely just insulted him. His life of exile had angered him, and his anger had never driven him to seek vengeance against a man who was not real enemy. And he heeded Abigail's wise word. Oh, Lord, have mercy, so good. Can we get a praise from all the women out here and all the Galentines? Woo, we got her. He respected her for the great respect she showed her household and so. And then he sent her away with the blessing, promising her safe return and the preservation of the men of Nabal. Abigail's name is mentioned in the scripture only one more time as the mother of David. This is what happened. Okay, I'm going to tell you the final what happened at the end. Here, as a result. So Abigail is blessed, anointed, and so she goes back with her women and she talks about this, and she goes back, and her wealthy husband, the fool Nabal, is drunk. She doesn't tell him anything. She just tells him, don't say anything. Tells the servants, because as women back then, they were servants of the master. He was the master, so don't tell him anything. Wait 24 hours, whatever. So she waits. When he wakes up and he's sober, she tells him all this stuff, and he's like, oh. How was his response? She tells him all this, and instead of him whatever, Nabal actually turns to stone. His reaction is stone. And the result of that, is that later on, God, the higher power, actually stoned, in a sense, spiritually. And this wealthy husband of her, Nabal, he died. He ended up dying. And guess what happened? Abigail, her women, all this wealth, they inherited all that wealth. David sent for her when she found out about this. And guess what? Sent for her. And she and her lady Galentine gathered up everything, and the servants and the shepherds and ran and brought everything. And guess what? Abigail became David's wife. Later on, a queen. Because he has ended up being later on the king of Israel. And so I think that's a great story for a great Galentine, but it's also an intimacy of how you should understand the uncomfortableness that when we forget what God has a plan for us on. And let me tell you something. The reason why, I know from my experience that you can hate God, you can ignore him. Or, God and goddess. You remember the God and goddess is together. He lives inside you. Yin and yang, whatever you call it out here. And I'm interfaith, so take it as it is. The holiness, the Holy Spirit, the Reiki, whatever you call it, that anoint, that holiness from that pure source. And we're always, let me tell you, this is what I'm telling you. Do not, when it says the golden rule, so when somebody's mean to you, when your girlfriend is mean to you, when you think, it hurts. It breaks your heart. And, sometimes you have to let go of those kind of friends. But do not try to hate them. I know you want to get revenge on him. Or maybe they taken your man or something like that, whatever it is. But it's saying, yes, pray for them. I say, do not revenge. Or anybody, pray for them. Satan, get behind me. Pray for them. Pray for them. Try to be nice. King, did you know what that story right there tells you right there? What the kindness of light coming from that pure source. And that is what we need to get the message out here. That is important. So, I know it's hard. Because we're sinners. We're sinners. Is it, God understands that. I mean, we're not perfect. Right? We're all still learning. We're still learning. We're still growing. Even when we leave this life, we're going to still grow. But shine bright. Level up. And that's what I'm talking about right now. And forgive. I mean, how do you get that forgiveness? So, what is that forgiveness coming from? Sacrificing so much for the greater good. And what is the main thing of sacrifice? When you stand right up and when it turns in that cross, Jesus Christ, he gave his only begotten son for that reason. Because he hates sin. He hates that anger. He hates that. He comes from pure source. Pure. God, goddess, pure source. Mama, Dad, universe, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want from. That is what it's about. And we are so grateful, so thankful for the sacrifices that are made in our lives, and we have to be, and so bless those instances. Doesn't mean, it could be an Abigail, is what I'm saying. Abigail, Galentine. Wonderful message I think we have right here for everyone that is listening. I hope you are. And don't remember to always shine your light. Let's come together right now. Join together. Take a deep breath in and say, oh, so good. And if you want to receive it, say, put your hands together to your heart center prayer mode. Lift your hands up to your forehead. Shine your light. Be a Galentine. Find true source. Understand and remember. Connect with that during this time. And if you want to receive this, if you want to believe, you're thankful and grateful, shine your light out to all those around you, and you shall receive the blessings of that, and anointed of the child, and you shall now vow to claim it. Yes, excellent, excellent. So good. I feel so great for this. What a great spiritual vibe message. Check out a wonderful gift I want to provide for you today, in a sense of a sponsor. Look in the description box. Join us on the Facebook group, Spiritual Vibration Challenge, if you're seeking spiritual support. You women out here that need some Galentines in your life, we have another group for you. It's called the Invincible Goddess group. I will link that down below. Come in there to be and join our circle of the Invincible Goddesses and be anointed as a story of Abigail, and find your Galentine, and share and be together for the greater good. This is Dr. Traci K. I also want to give you some insight about how you can get some information about love coming up here. We have some fun love reading, pick a card, claim a card going on. There's some art and music, meditations, horoscopes, stuff like that, zodiac signs, and also if you want to take a masterclass on palmistry, love is in the hands, baby, love is in the hands. check out that wonderful masterclass. Have a wonderful week. Light and love to all of you. Take care.